The silent watchers, the crystal spires of Nexus Prime caught the morning light like prisms, casting rainbow reflections across the endless ocean that covered 90% of the planet's surface. Dr. Kale Nixari floated peacefully in his meditation, chamber gills filtering the warm, mineral-rich water as he contemplated the philosophical equations that had occupied Nixari scholars for generations. His people had long ago solved the mysteries of faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and biological harmony. What they had never learned was how to kill efficiently. That ignorance was about to cost them everything. 3 light-years away, aboard the Galactic Council observation vessel Eternal Witness, Ambassador Theiss of the Relurian Collective watched, her sensor displays with the detached interest of a scientist observing bacteria. The readings were clear and devastating. A Korthak Horde battle fleet over 200 vessels strong had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system. Their intentions were as obvious as they were brutal. The Accord must be observed, Theiss muttered to her aide, a younger Relurian whose tentacles twitched with barely suppressed emotion. Article 7, Subsection 12. No member species shall interfere in what appears to be a natural extinction event, regardless of moral considerations. But Ambassador, the aide whispered, the Nexari have done nothing wrong. They're philosophers, artists, healers. They've never even developed weapons beyond basic tools. Theiss's compound eyes reflected no sympathy. The universe does not care about innocence. The Accord exists to prevent galactic war, not to save every peaceful species that fails to adapt to reality. The Korthak Horde had adapted perfectly to reality. Under the command of War Master Grok, a scarred behemoth whose body was more cybernetic enhancement than original flesh, they had turned warfare into an art form. Where other species saw planets, the Korthak saw resources. Where others saw civilizations, they saw obstacles to be removed. They had been expanding through the Outer Rim for decades, and not once had the Galactic Council intervened. The Accord forbade it. Grok stood on the bridge of his flagship Blood Harvest, studying tactical displays that showed Nexus Prime in perfect detail. His mechanical jaw clicked as he processed the data. No orbital defenses, no military installations, no weapon signatures at all. The water breathers had made it almost insultingly easy. Begin the cleansing protocol, he growled to his tactical officer. Orbital bombardment of population centers first. Once their spirits are broken, we'll harvest what remains. The first, missiles screamed through Nexus Prime's atmosphere like falling stars, but instead of wishes, they carried death. The crystal spires of the capital city exploded into glittering fragments. Underwater cities that had stood for millennia became boiling tombs. Dr. Kale felt the shockwaves even in his deep-sea laboratory as the world above erupted in fire and steam. Frantically, he activated the emergency communication array, sending desperate pleas across every frequency. This is Dr. Kale Nixari of the Nexus Prime Scientific Collective. We are under attack by unknown forces. We have no defenses, no military capability. If anyone can hear this, please. We are dying. The message reached every monitoring station within 50 light years. The Timerians recorded it for their archives. The Velkari noted it in their daily reports. The Zelroth Council debated whether to send a strongly worded diplomatic protest. Everyone heard. No one acted, except for Captain Elena Rodriguez. Rodriguez sat in the command chair of the Earth Monitoring Station Pacific Watch, hidden in the asteroid belt of an uncharted system, just 12 light-years from Nexus Prime. Officially, Earth had been expelled from the Galactic Council 15 years ago for aggressive tendencies and failure to respect established protocols. Unofficially, they had left voluntarily after growing disgusted with the Council's endless bureaucracy and moral cowardice. Captain, called Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communication station, were receiving multiple distress signals from the Nexus system. Looks like the Korthak Horde just started a full-scale invasion. Rodriguez was a compact woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much of human cruelty to be surprised by alien brutality. She had served in Earth's Colonial Defense Force for 23 years, fought in the Titan uprising, and commanded relief operations during the Mars plague. She knew what evil looked like, regardless of what species was perpetrating it. Any response from the Council? She asked, though she already knew the answer. They've dispatched observation vessels to monitor the situation, Kim replied with barely concealed disgust. No intervention planned. The Preservation Accord forbids it. Rodriguez stood slowly, her jaw set in a line that her crew had learned to recognize. It was the expression she wore when she was about to do something that would either save lives or end her career. Usually both. Mr. Torres, she called to her tactical officer. How long would it take to reach Nexus Prime if we left now? Captain, Torres replied carefully. Our orders are to maintain position and monitor. How long, Commander? 8 hours at maximum burn, ma'am. But Captain, if we interfere in a Council-designated preservation event, Earth could face total economic sanctions, maybe even military action. Rodriguez moved to the main display, studying the tactical readout of the Nexus system. The Korthak fleet was already in orbit, raining death on a defenseless world. In 8 hours, there might be nothing left to save. But there might also be just enough. The Accord, she said quietly, was written by species who had never seen real evil. It was designed by politicians who confused neutrality with morality. It assumes that extinction is always natural, always deserved. She turned to face her crew, 27 men and women who had volunteered for this deep space assignment specifically, because they believed in what Earth represented. The Korthak horde isn't a natural disaster. They're not an evolutionary pressure. They're murderers, and the Council is letting them work because it's politically convenient. Her communications officer, a young man named David Chen, spoke up hesitantly. Captain, what about our orders from Earth Command? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Earth Command gave me discretionary authority to protect human interests in this sector. As of right now, I'm declaring that the extinction of an entire, peaceful civilization threatens human interests. She moved back to her command chair and activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. In 30 minutes, we will be departing this position to render assistance to the Nexari of Nexus Prime. This action will likely be considered illegal by the Galactic Council and may result in severe consequences for Earth and for each of us personally. She paused, listening to the silence that had fallen over the bridge. Then she continued. However, I have never been more certain of anything in my life. We became humans not by conquering the weak, but by protecting them. We earned our place among the stars not through strength alone, but through the courage to stand between the innocent and those who would destroy them. Anyone who wishes to object to this mission may do so now. The silence stretched for long seconds. Then Lieutenant Kim looked up from her station and said, Captain, I'm detecting additional human vessels on long-range sensors. It looks like the Toronto, the Mumbai, and the Sao Paulo are adjusting course toward Nexus Prime. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. How is that possible? Those ships are supposed to be on patrol in other sectors. Chen grinned as he worked his controls. It seems their captains all received the same discretionary authority you did, ma'am. Funny how Earth Command anticipated this situation. The realization hit Rodriguez like a physical blow. Earth hadn't stationed monitoring vessels throughout this region to watch for threats to human colonies. They had placed them here to watch for exactly this kind of situation. Earth Command had been waiting for someone to cross the line that the Council refused to defend. They had been preparing for the moment when humanity would have to choose between galactic politics and basic decency. Mr. Torres, Rodriguez said, settling into her command chair with new determination, signal the fleet. Tell them we're going in silent running until we reach Nexus Prime, and prep our full arsenal. If we're going to break galactic law, we might as well do it properly. As the Pacific Watch and her sister ships accelerated toward Nexus Prime, Dr. Kale huddled in the ruins of his laboratory, listening to the screams of his people echo through the water. The Korthak bombardment had been going on for 6 hours. Half of his world's population was already dead. The other half was dying slowly as their cities collapsed and their ocean burned with chemical fire. He activated his emergency transmitter one more time. Not because he expected anyone to answer, but because giving up felt like betraying everyone who had already died. "This is Dr. Kale Nixari," he whispered into the static. "If anyone receives this message, please remember us. Remember that we tried to be better than our fears. Remember that we chose wisdom over weapons, peace over power. Remember that we're here." The response came 30 seconds later, crackling through interference but unmistakably clear. "Dr. Nixari, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Pacific Watch. We hear you, and we're coming. Hold on just a little longer." The human solution. The Korthak horde had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, and War Master Grok had personally overseen the destruction of 17 different species. He knew the patterns of defeat as intimately as a musician knows a favorite song. First came the desperate resistance, futile and brief. Then the pleas for mercy that he never granted. Finally, the silence of extinction. But something was wrong with the Nexus Prime Symphony. "War Master," called his sensor operator, a thin Korthak whose cybernetic implants glowed red in the bridge's dim lighting. "I'm detecting anomalous readings at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts moving fast." Grok's mechanical jaw clicked in irritation. "Council observers?" "Negative, sir. The energy signatures are unfamiliar, and they're not broadcasting identification codes." Before Grok could respond, space itself seemed to ripple around Nexus Prime. 4 vessels materialized, from stealth fields that had rendered them completely invisible to Korthak sensors. They were sleek, predatory shapes that looked nothing like the elegant curves of council ships or the brutal edges of Korthak warships. These vessels were purely functional, designed by a species that understood that war was a tool, not an art form. The lead ship, Pacific Watch, took position directly between the Korthak fleet and Nexus Prime. Its communications array activated, broadcasting on all frequencies with a calm, professional tone that somehow carried more menace than any battle cry. "Korthak forces, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are engaged in the systematic extermination of non-combatants. Withdraw from this system immediately, or we will consider you a threat to interplanetary security and respond accordingly." Aboard the observation vessel Eternal Witness, Ambassador Thys stared at her displays in shock. The humans had been expelled from the Council precisely because of this kind of reckless behavior, but she had never imagined they would be audacious enough to directly challenge the Preservation Accord. "Ambassador," whispered her aide, "what do we do? The humans are violating every treaty we have." Thys's tentacles writhed with anxiety. "Contact Earth immediately. Demand they recall their vessels before this situation escalates beyond control." But it was already too late for control. War Master Grok studied the human ships with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating new prey. 4 small vessels against his 200-ship armada. It was almost insulting. "Unknown vessels you are. Interfering in a sanctioned cleansing operation. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Captain Rodriguez's response was immediate and final. "Negative. We don't recognize the authority of genocidal maniacs." The first shot came from the Korthak flagship, a plasma bolt that could have vaporized a city block. It struck the Pacific Watch's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. Rodriguez didn't even blink. "All ships," she said calmly. "Weapons free. Show these butchers what humans do to bullies." What followed wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of why Earth had developed the most advanced military technology in the galaxy, despite being expelled from the Council. The human ships moved like wolves through the Korthak formation, their weapons precise and devastating. Where Korthak ships relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers, human vessels used speed, stealth, and tactical brilliance. The Toronto crippled 3 Korthak destroyers with a single barrage, its experimental quantum torpedoes phasing through their shields like they didn't exist. The Mumbai deployed a jamming field that turned the Korthak fleet's own coordination systems against them, causing dozens of ships to fire on their own allies. The São Paulo launched a spread of mining drones that latched onto enemy hulls and began systematically disabling engines and weapons. But Rodriguez had a different mission. While her sister ships engaged the main fleet, the Pacific Watch dove toward Nexus Prime's atmosphere, its hull gleaming as it entered the planet's protective envelope of air and water. Dr. Kale watched in amazement as the human ship descended through the burning sky like a silver angel. Its landing pods deployed as it reached the ocean surface, extending massive stabilizers that allowed it to rest on the water like an ancient boat. Smaller craft emerged from its belly, submarine-like vessels that moved through the water with graceful efficiency. The first rescue ship reached Kale's laboratory complex within minutes. Its airlock cycled open, revealing two humans in environmental suits. The first was a tall woman with commander's insignia, the second a broad-shouldered man carrying medical equipment. "Dr. Nexari?" the woman asked, her voice clear through the water-adapted communicator. "I'm Commander Sarah Webb, Earth Marine Corps. We're here to get you and your people out of here." Kale could barely process what was happening. But the Accord. No one is supposed to interfere. Commander Webb's expression was visible through her helmet's faceplate, and it was utterly determined. "Doctor, my species has a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We've decided we're done doing nothing." The evacuation of Nexus Prime survivors took 18 hours. Human submarines moved through the planet's vast oceans, locating hidden settlements and isolated research stations. They pulled Nexari from collapsed cities and burning coral reefs, loading them onto transport vessels that would carry them to safety among Earth's colony worlds. Dr. Kale found himself aboard the Pacific Watch, standing in an observation lounge as Captain Rodriguez coordinated the rescue operations. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the space battle still raging in orbit. Korthak ships burned like dying stars while human vessels darted between them with deadly precision. "Why?" he asked Rodriguez quietly. "Your species was expelled from the Council. You gain nothing from helping us, you risk everything." Rodriguez turned from her tactical display to look at the Nexari scientist. Her eyes held the weight of command, but also something deeper. Compassion, perhaps, or simply the refusal to accept that evil was inevitable. "Dr. Nexari," she said, "my people have a complicated history. We've done terrible things to each other and to our own world. We've been conquerors and victims, heroes and villains. But we learned something that apparently the rest of the galaxy hasn't figured out yet." She gestured toward the window where the last Korthak ships were fleeing the system in defeat. "We learned that civilization isn't about technology or philosophy or even survival. It's about the choice to protect those who cannot protect themselves. It's about standing up when everyone else sits down. It's about being human, even when it's inconvenient." The aftermath of the Nexus Prime incident rippled through the galaxy like shockwaves from a dying star. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions, demanding explanations from Earth that would never come. Economic sanctions were proposed and implemented, cutting Earth off from traditional trade routes and diplomatic channels. Earth's response was delivered by Admiral Sarah Chen during a broadcast that reached every civilized world in the galaxy. Standing before a backdrop of rescued Nexari families rebuilding their lives on New Geneva Colony, she spoke with quiet conviction. The Galactic Council has accused Earth of violating the Preservation Accord and destabilizing interplanetary relations. They are correct on both counts. We violated their precious law because we refused to call genocide a natural process. We destabilized their system because we believe some things are more important than political convenience. She paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that had seen war and chosen peace. "The Council asks what gives us the right to interfere in the affairs of other species. We answer, the same thing that gave us the right to leave our homeworld, to reach for the stars and to claim our place among the civilizations of the galaxy. We are human. We interfere because we must. We fight because others cannot. We stand because everyone else has chosen to kneel." The broadcast concluded with footage of Nexari children playing in Earth's oceans, their voices raised in songs of hope that had nearly been silenced forever. Within a year, 17 species had withdrawn from the Galactic Council, citing philosophical differences with current policies. Trade relationships formed between Earth and dozens of worlds that had grown tired of bureaucratic neutrality. The Preservation Accord remained in effect, but its authority weakened with each passing day. And somewhere in the deep ocean waters of New Geneva Colony, Dr. Kale Nexari worked alongside human scientists, developing new technologies that would ensure no other peaceful species would ever again face extinction alone. The galaxy had learned a simple truth that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Humans didn't care about rules. They cared about doing what was right, and that made all the difference.